know the feeling you get when it comes up?
Hello, race fans. This is the second grid talk for Ion Season 3. Today with me, we have Lol Fun Greg, my co-host, and ProfessorBloxxer, our new interview for today. Say hello.
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 Today, we're in the beautiful Cannes, France for the French GP in the Ion F1 venue, which we will be racing in later this weekend. But first off, let's talk about how the Greece GP went last weekend for F1 and the interesting additions and changes that happened.
It was definitely quite interesting because we went into that weekend with the new damage system for collided cars. So when someone crashed, their car became collidable, and it definitely caused a lot of drama, a couple red flags, a lot more DNFs than we saw from Suwon the week before. It reminded us, I think it reminded me of Australia, the very first round, when we had damage and we had a lot more DNFs than maybe we expected. But yeah, I think there was a lot of experience gained from there by the teams and the directors of Ion.
Well, that is true. However, there was a lot of commotion between team owners alike and drivers alike, I do believe, that these collisions still need a lot of test work and felt that it wasn't ready to go for the Greek GP, and there was a lot of people angry at Cash about this. So Cash has decided that he's going to make some changes, not only for the F1 collision features, but also for sprint races for GT3 and F2. I do believe for the F1 collisions, when a car crashes, I do believe their tires and front wing will not be collidable. They were not supposed to be collidable in the first place, but there was a bug, and those collisions will not turn on for a car for the crashes until 10 seconds after they crash, and the engine will turn off the moment a wheel is missing, which means that they will not try and continue the race, go onto the track, and become a hazard for other drivers, which is a welcome addition, in my own opinion. As for GT3 and F2 sprint races, I believe they have said that the cars themselves will not be collidable anymore. People could run into tires and cause them to spin out. Those will now only be towards the characters themselves, which means that it'll be a smaller hitbox. I'm not sure how much of a difference this is going to make for sprint races and the collisions that happen with those, but we will have to see when we go to Australia later this weekend for GT3 and France for F2.
I think the new collisions for avatars will be really helpful for GT3 and F2. It'll make passing a lot easier. It might not look so hard in the streams, but when you have to take into account vision lag and so many things, it's actually really tough to get by an opponent, and more times than not you're relying on them to make a mistake in order to get the time to get past.
Professor, do you have any words?
Yeah, I think with the new changes and the whole 10-second collision rule, I think it'll definitely work better, but I feel like on circuits like these, like on France over here, if someone crashes, they're most likely going to crash on the racing line. So I wonder how that's going to play a part in qualifying, since everyone's going to be trying to get the maximum out, and if someone kind of crashes out, then and they can be parked on the racing line, that could spice things up for the grid order.
Luckily, I do believe Cash is going to be making some strides in trying to have drivers more notified of these new changes, including new flags on each map. I believe we can see a few on the French one right now, especially on the DRS areas. But those might even be, there might even be more of those later on, but we'll have to see about that. To move on, let's talk about Hyundai Sport for a second, because there's been a lot of new additions and exciting news for them as well. I believe Darkar and Warlord 6000, old drivers from Season 1's F1 ranks, are now going to be running in GT3. They ran in GT3 Suwon last weekend, and Darkar got a second place position for the feature race. Do we believe them to be making strides in GT3 so far?
I mean, yeah, they're definitely on like old guard, and most people, I don't think we're expecting them to come back into Ion. Both of them have expressed before before this their debuts that they weren't interested in coming back to Ion, and this is kind of odd, and I think it led to a questioning of how Skyduel as a team owner does things and convinces so many moves and these signings. But
Well, to be fair, that is not going to be the only one Sky is going to be vying for recently. I believe there has been talks about him trying to get UhWafflez 2 and Paulo 2002 back into the ranks, especially in GT3, as those people were very good GT3 drivers. But I do believe that Sky will not be able to get him until Season 4, but anything can change right now. Lotus is going to be having their new F1 main. I believe the name of that person is going to be RTZ Phoenix. They had lost Roe 09 and Lancedroid to Audi and BMW and had to sign in Scuppins for the Greek GP, but now they finally have a second main driver, which will be RTZ Phoenix with their team.
Lotus has always kind of been a team that's under threat of being like removed or whatever because of low attendance and not great performance. But hopefully this new manager signing and the new driver signing will keep them up on their feet.
Other than that, let's talk about UhWafflez for a minute, because he had a considerably bad time during the GT3 Suon and has now left Ion completely for the summer, giving that team to the real body boy, the WRT Audi team.
Yep, that was because of external reasons, kind of like Luca's retirement before, and he won't be back for a while. I believe he's deleted Discord. He's still in the server, but he's not actually online anymore. So he says he won't be back till next summer. We'll see if Ion is still alive and waiting for him when that comes.
ProfessorBloxxer, have you seen any new interesting areas to talk about when it comes to signing proof? Anything new with Aston Martin?
Nothing really new, but I can talk about my involvement. I'm not sure if I'll stay for season 4, so
Breaking news
hopefully.
right here.
Fingers crossed that I can stay, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It kind of depends on external factors. So,
Well, we
I'll do
will
my
wish
best.
you the best of luck. Breaking news now. It seems as though FASTA has made the decision that there will be a change to the podium rule. Right now, it is set to where there is 5 podiums needed for you to only stay in one division, not counting sprint races. However, there has been a bit of commotion, especially with Kakera wanting that change to be a little lower so that people can't take advantage of it. And FASTA has said that he will be changing it before the France race. There is no idea on what the changes will be yet. We'll have to be posted on that later today. But other than that, be ready for some new changes before this French race. Anyways, to move on, let's talk about Centauri having an interesting amount of events happen during this last week. They had their team owner banned due to toxicity and had to give it over to Eastlowerz. And then Capitan Bo, I do believe, went over to Breezy's team, TriStar F2. But only a day later, TDM was brought back. He did pay his double fine for the appeal and got his team back, and East will now be still part of the team as a team staff / manager, and Capitan Bo has returned to Centauri. A lot of interesting changes to Centauri, only to be changed back once the owner has returned, to be fair.
And in another controversial move, Captain Bo rejoined Centauri because of like pay, basically, and I think that sparked some not anger. Well, some people were angry with it, and some people don't like the fact that Bo's decision was swayed by money. But I mean, personally, it's something you could see coming in a competitive environment like this. And
wait a minute, this is news to me.
news to you.
Bo's being paid by Centauri?
Yeah, he was going to be paid by Breezy, and Centauri just offered him more, and that's why he joined back.
That's interesting.
Yep. And now that's sparking debate over, the need for driver contract regulations and or things of that sort.
Talking point for a while now. It might, gain some ground now after these interesting. You have Skyduel getting these new drivers off of ways we are unsure of yet, and then you have drivers being paid to move to a team but then return to a team. There might have to be a few new regulations for that.
there's some who are against it and some who support it. The people who are against it would say things like, it's the choice of the driver in the end of the day, and it's much easier for the managers to run the league without having to watch over everyone's contracts. When you think about it, that'll be a lot to manage. And then there's those who do want this kind of stuff moderated so that it's more fair on the team owners. They have a little bit more insurance over their drivers and the safety of their team. But whether or not Ion staff is actually going to make any moves about that, we're not completely unsure, but it seems they're more leaning towards the call it the capitalist way. They won't be moderating many contracts yet, or things like that. So yeah. Actually, Professor, do you have anything to say about that? Do you have your own opinion, maybe?
Of Centauri and the stuff that's going on there.
They're getting paid.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Based on what Greg says, you got a source, Greg?
Well, TDM himself.
I'm kind of
All right. Well, that helps.
kind of donating my time.
Me too. I mean, I think most drivers are going.
I think only the most
professional.
hardcore drivers and team owners are going to be worrying about payment. The others are just doing this for the hell of it. Okay. Well, we need to move on from that, as I do believe that we need to talk about how Kakera is the new owner of Ferrari. This has been the, I believe, third change of team owner so far. I can't remember the first owner's name, but they gave it over to Plaza. No, Plaza was not the first owner, actually, I don't think. Based on what the wiki says, that is actually false. However, it was given to Plaza. I'll be looking that up in a second. It was given to Plaza, and then was given to Kakera once Plaza left, and now Kakera has given it to Kakera, which might be signaling that Kakera is serious about leaving Ion during Season 4 for F1.
Well, I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see for the end of the season, because last season we were proven wrong when Kakera said he would retire. So yeah, wait and see. But I think this is pretty concrete proof that it might actually happen. And like Kakera said last week, there's pretty solid reasoning about that. Actually, Kakera got a job like yesterday or something. So.
Oh, well, congratulations to Kakera on that part.
Yep. And all the more reason he might really have to go after this season.
How do you feel about this change, Professor? Kakera now taking over for all of Ferrari.
It doesn't really change anything from my side. Obviously, we still have to close the gap to Ferrari. I think, I have, at least on my side, I have our sights set on winning the Constructors, but I don't know how possible that is this far into the season, but that's the goal. So it doesn't really change anything in regards to on-track performance.
That's true. That's definitely true. But after this season, yeah, the competition might get pretty crazy. It won't be as consistent as last year's. But anyways, I don't have much else to comment on that.
Moving on. Let's talk about some Formula E news before we get into the F1 stuff. There has been an update to the UV for everybody trying to make a livery for the Ion Formula E cars. There was a lot of complaints about text warping, about text being stretched out on specific areas. Greg, I believe, was the one who complained about that the most. Initially. Yeah, initially. But it has been changed. There has been an update to UV3, which is the centerpiece of the Formula E car, and there will no longer be text warping, and you can still do your full detailed texture and design on the top of the car without having to worry about clipping or warping, which is good for Greg because he seems to be enjoying it.
Anyways, so upcoming this weekend, we may as well jump on what's happening soon. We've already touched on. Well, do you have anything else to say?
Before we do that, Professor, is AMR interested in getting a Formula E team?
I have no idea, to be honest. I haven't spoken with Infantry or Father Quebec. Yeah, it'll be good for the team, but I think it's his decision. So, and I won't be involved in it anyway.
Well, I do know Brandstar is a little concerned about getting a Formula E team right now, but as that we do not know when Formula E will start yet, that is still to be concerned. And there's always what was the secondary team for Formula E called again?
Oh yeah, there was the secondary series that was going to feature custom teams as soon as this season. That would be their I-8 championship, I believe it's called. But no real details have been released about that yet. We haven't seen any UVs or what the car looks like or anything like that. So
Okay, anyways, let's talk about this weekend right now, as we are now in the Conference Formula GP place, and this will be the place where we're going to be running F1 and F2 for this weekend. I do believe that this is going to be even more interesting than the Greek GP, even with the cooldown on the crashes, because as this is a street circuit, there are less places for mistakes. This is a street circuit, meaning that there's going to be walls for each area. There's little to no room for error on these places. If you hit the wall, especially if they haven't changed anything involving, durability of the car, this is going to be an easy place to get crashes and a hard place to avoid them.
Yep, there's only a couple runoff areas and it's very tight. It's a Monaco-like track in every sense of that. So to see how many people make it and to see maybe the positions change around in F1, considering maybe some drivers will do better in a street circuit than others, I think it'll be interesting to see what results this weekend. I'm personally excited to race on it.
All right, well, you heard it here first. It turns out that Greek GP did not have the points for upgrades open at that point, and they were not active, but we will be seeing that during this new France GP later this weekend. Can we talk about the weather for France before we get into GT3?
Yep. Well, for France, for F1, it is clear. It should be clear skies. 0% chance of rain this weekend. Maybe a little bit cloudy, but I doesn't care about that. So, yep. Probably going to be another dry race this weekend in Conference.
Say that, but Kashmir could do a wild card and put on some fog during this race if it's going to be cloudy.
Maybe, if he finally implements that random weather system.
But yes, be looking for some clear skies in France during the F1 race. There will be dry tracks, which means that we should not be expecting any wet compounds during that day. But as for GT3, we're going to be running it back in Australia. The very first race from F1 will now be the next GT3 race. We had a lot of issues in Suwon with bumps on inclines and that sort, which we would expect to be finished by the time we get to Australia, as Australia will be a flat track. And we tested it in F1 and it seemed to go well. So we're expecting the same thing for GT3. And we will see some people who were sort of completely wrecked during the Suwon for track issues to have hopefully been making a comeback during the Australia race. What do you think?
Yep, I think Suwon, well, there were just a couple small issues which happened to affect a good portion of the grid. So I think the Suwon results were definitely a bit mixed around compared to maybe what they would have been had there not been a couple issues present at the time. And yeah, I agree. In Australia, I think we'll see the standings kind of move back towards where one might expect them to be after the weekend. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see though.
And do we know anything about the weather that'll be happening in Sydney, Australia that day?
Well, supposedly clear skies in Sydney for the weekend, for Saturday and Sunday. Again, just a little bit of clouds or whatever, but no chance of rain whatsoever so far. And yeah, so that's clear skies in Australia for GT3 and in France for F1. So yeah.
Well, there you go. Clear skies yet again for racing this weekend. And I do believe that is all we have for today. ProfessorBloxxer, do you have any final words for us?
I think I'm going to start recording my POV starting this week.
Oh, that's radical. Okay, I'll watch
So,
Oh, that's
that.
great.
I need to learn
Yeah, we
from
can use
good
that in highlights.
drivers.
yeah, new entries into media submissions.
Yep, coming
All
soon.
right. And don't forget, guys, to record your races as well so that we can put those in media submissions. And if you haven't already, go check out the Greece GP highlights that have just been recorded and uploaded today.
Yep, as of when we're filming, yeah.
Anyways, that has been it for me, Low Fun Greg, and ProfessorBloxxer for Ion Grid Talk number 2. We hope to see you in France GP this weekend. Those times will be posted in the race schedule. And we'll also be able to see you in Australia GP for GT3. So be sure to see you next time. This has been it for Grid Talk with me, Greg, and ProfessorBloxxer. We'll see you next weekend, and then we'll see you on the track.